salute to the American flag and the Pledge of Allegiance. And I unfortunately do not have an image of a flag available. If someone could bring one up, I would really appreciate that. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you. And now I will turn over the meeting to our Toastmaster for the evening, Mr. Craig Sprout.
Thank you, Madam Vice President of Education. Welcome, Toastmasters, new and returning Toastmasters. So excited to see everybody here, all of our guests on Facebook. Tonight, we are up for a good meeting. What we do in Toastmasters is we have a meeting that we do in 3 sections. For first part, we give a prepared speech. Second part, we do impromptu speeches. And in the third part, we do evaluations, which is immediate feedback for our speakers. Without delaying the meeting any further, I am going to introduce our WAG today to introduce his role, and he will give us the word of the day and explain what he does. And our WAG today is Shankar Ponsalay.
Thank you so very much. I have a very interesting word of the day today that I have to admit I had a little help with, but I think it will fall right in line with last week's theme when our dear Jim spoke all about flying to the moon. So I think Andrea was inspired by that because she suggested I use the word syzygy. So what is that? First, I'm going to post that in the chat so everybody can kind of read. Syzygy, and it says an alignment of 3 celestial objects as the sun, the earth, and either the moon or a planet. Furthermore, if you would allow me to share my screen again, I would briefly show a visual of a syzygy. As you can see, when you are faced with a total lunar eclipse, you are speaking of a syzygy. And I would say that in order to deliver a perfect speech, the elements of deliverance, timing, and body language need to be in syzygy. Furthermore, as your WAG person of the night, I will take a close look at filler words, ahs, and us, and I will try to detect grammatical errors as good as Andrea does. And I should say as well as Andrea does, right? All right, that is all from the WAG.
Thank you, Shankar. Our general evaluator today is Andrea Ferguson, and Andrea will give us an introduction of her role as well as the members of her team for the evaluation portion. Andrea.
Thank you, dear Toastmaster. It is my pleasure to explain to you what exactly it is that a general evaluator does. First, I will tell you my name is Andrea Ferguson. Dear Toastmasters and guests, the purpose of the general evaluator is to evaluate everything that happens throughout the meeting. That means that during the meeting, I'm going to take notes. You'll see me maybe writing on my iPad on everything that happens and doesn't happen. I will evaluate each participant on the meeting program and look for good examples of preparation, organization, delivery, enthusiasm, observation, and performance of duties. At the end of the meeting, I will give my report. I also have to create perfect syzygy, a few evaluators who will also be assisting me with the evaluation. That will be the evaluator for the first speaker, who is, just so I know who to call on. Oh, I see two hands. I don't know who
Oh,
is
sorry,
the
that was my mistake.
evaluator. Okay, all right. Thank you. I have Tammy Perez, who will be the first evaluator. And for the second speech, we have no one because there is no second speech. Dear Toastmaster.
Thank you, Andrea. And I would also like to welcome our timer, Pamela Gauna. She will be tracking our timing today. So Pamela, if you would give us a description of your role.
Yes, greetings, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. As timer, I will time the table topics, speakers, formal speeches, and the evaluations. I will also alert each speaker of the time they have left using the green, yellow, and red Zoom background for the specific times remaining. For the table topics, speakers should limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes. Those giving speeches should limit their remarks to the specific speech times. For the icebreaker speeches, it should be 4 to 6 minutes in length. Most other speeches should be 5 to 7 minutes in length. The individual evaluations should be between 2 to 3 minutes. And just to practice, I'm going to show you the Zoom background that you will see up on my screen behind me. The green, the yellow, and the red. I'm not going to go through the other colors. Thank you, fellow Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Madam Timer. As you may have noticed on your calendar, today is the 5th Monday of the month. What I've seen other clubs do, and I thought I would bring this to your attention, is when you have a 5th meeting of the month, some people like to shake it up a little bit. And some ideas for the next 5th Monday might be a backwards meeting. If you've ever attended a backwards Toastmasters meeting, those can be rather fun and entertaining. Or we can do something with a themed, like everyone has to wear a hat, or their favorite hat, or pick their favorite background, or however, wear your mask. As Jim's demonstrating. That's something to think about as we begin this 5th Monday. Our first speaker tonight is Laura Sanchez, and Laura will tell us what she's speaking about, and we'll get to hear her speech. Laura.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. For the timer's benefit, the time for my speech should be 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Toastmasters and guests. As I thought about what to speak about today, I thought about the pathway that I'm on, which is effective coaching. And I thought about my current role as a leader in a fairly large organization and what we've been going through recently. And as many of you have, we've moved primarily to remote work, which has been a big shift for many of us. And that can bring with it feelings of isolation and sometimes feelings of being overwhelmed because it's hard to disassociate with work. And so I know we've all seen many posts on the internet about people who are taking on new hobbies, trying to find creative ways to stay engaged or busy at home, either with themselves or their kids, in an environment where we can't really go out and in an environment where we're limited in what we can do based on social distancing and attempting to stay home and so forth because of the pandemic. So I do feel it's very important, though, for the people that I lead and my friends and colleagues to try and work with the whole person and help to find ways to be creative. And so I thought today I would share with you a hobby, or not really a pastime, but more a hobby and a research interest I have, because it is something that is very easily done from home. It's not expensive, and it allows you to kind of engage your mind away from work in something that's completely unrelated, but it is something that you can really easily do from home. And so I wanted to share that with you. And it also ties in a little bit to a previous speech by Andrea, who had talked about recently doing her ancestry DNA. And so it ties in a little bit to that as well. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see my slides. And I'm going to be talking about researching your family history and how you can use this as a hobby and a research interest that you can do from home. First, you need to know what actually genealogy is. So genealogy is basically a definition is it's a record or a table of the descendants of a person, a family, or a group. So the technical definition is it's basically a listing of all of your relatives or ancestors. You can do this as a direct descendant or those ancestors that came before you and those that come after you in a direct line, or you can study an entire family and look at the entire family histories, cousins, aunts, uncles, and the entire history of those who are associated with your family. Either way is perfectly fine. They're all genealogy. But there are some ways that you can prepare to begin with to learn how to study your genealogy. So I want to kind of give you those where to start tips and tricks. So the first decision you need to make when you want to look at your own genealogy is, what do you want to research? Do you want to research only your direct line, which is following a single name or surname throughout history? Do you want to look at the entire family, which is the surname and siblings and parents and grandparents that are directly related? Or are you really interested in the whole story, which they call collateral genealogy, which is the entire family, all the siblings, marriages, divorces, all of the associated relatives related to those? Are you really interested in that whole story? So you have to first decide what you want to research. Second, I recommend selecting a software to keep all this information in, because it helps you to keep organized. It helps you to create family trees. It helps you to store records. There are many, many different softwares you can use, but I do recommend that tool to help you keep organized and help you to formulate your family trees as you collect information. There are several that are available. Some are free, some are not free, but I have some resources here. I'll share after the meeting this PowerPoint, so if you are interested, you can look these up. I personally use Family Tree Maker because it's easy for me to use, and I've been using it for a long time, and I didn't want to go through the work of switching to a different software, quite honestly. So once you've selected your software and you've decided, what do I want to research? You always start with what you already know. So what do you have available to you? Do you have documents in a folder somewhere that a parent gave to you or a grandparent? Family Bibles are in some areas of the country, and other countries are places where individuals wrote down family records and other types of documents or other types of religious texts that are important to a family, and they would write these details inside. And then ask your relatives if they have documents that they're willing to share that might have this information. So this is an example of a page from a family Bible that I have here at my house that is from the early 1800s, and it starts with a gentleman who was born in 1815. This is only the first page. It actually chronicles multiple generations of my grandmother's family. And interesting, you can see throughout this page on the second half where the handwriting actually changes, and you can tell someone else in the family took over the job of writing down the family records in this particular Bible. So it's interesting to see how that was passed on from one member to another. In addition, pictures are a great reference, because a lot of times in older pictures, individuals would write names and dates on the back of the pictures, which is helpful. Old letters, other documents like that, old wills, things that you might have in your possession that you may not realize have a lot of really valuable family information on them. The next thing you can do is interview family members. Just start asking them questions, names, dates, everything they can remember about their family, where your family came from, how things happened within your family, and track that in a document as you're interviewing your family members, so you can keep that information and begin researching based on that and writing everything down. A tip to keep in mind is generally in the United States, females should be entered by their maiden name when you're keeping records so you can keep track of what family they originated from rather than writing down their married name, because otherwise you might lose track of their original family name. So once you've selected a name to research, there are some different documents you can go to. There are some online databases that are free that have a lot of records already in them. And you can research these with the information you've gathered from your relatives. Ancestry.com is a paid subscription site that also has a lot of records. And there's a couple more, Genealogy Bank and Footnote. And I'm getting towards the end of my time, so I want to share some additional records, which are the death records are a good place to start because you can work backwards from death records. And you can also use even tombstones. So this is a tombstone from a family member of mine from that was born in the 1830s. You can use older obituaries that have a lot of information in them. And obituaries have a lot of character information in addition to date information. So as an example, this one starts out with, Grandpa Adamson is gone. He passed this stage of life on Wednesday morning. And then it goes on and it gives a lot of kind of character information about Grandpa Adamson, who, by the way, is my great, 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 great grandfather. Census records also have a lot of information. This is an example of a census record that has information of where people were born, especially because they recorded it. And then you can also document family relationships. The most important thing is to have fun learning about your family and your heritage, and you can learn what country of origin your family may be from. You may be surprised and find out that you have origins in countries you weren't expecting. I am going to share in my next speech a particular story of someone in my family that I was able to research and found out that some of the family stories we had been told were actually not true, and I was able to understand the real history of this particular line of my family, which was slightly different than the story that had been passed down to me from various relatives. So again, I just wanted to share this as a beginning of how you can use your genealogy as a habit and a pastime to help you get through these challenging times of being remote and keeping engaged. Thank you, Master Toastmaster.
Thank you, Laura. A few years back, I took up genealogy in a light way and traced my grandmother's line back to England in the 1600s. And I was so excited, and I told my mom, and that's when I found out that my grandmother had been adopted in the 1920s, and they sealed things up pretty tight back then, so it was a dead end for me anyway. Okay, Madam Timer, can we have a report on Laura's speech, please?
Yes, Mr. Toastmaster, thank you. Laura, thank you for sharing that information. You presented within 9 minutes and 33 seconds. The time frame was 5 to 7 minutes, so it was outside of the limit, but good information that you shared. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Timer. This time we'll move along to the impromptu speech portion of the meeting, where our members and guests get a topic they are not prepared for, and they have to speak from 1 to 2 minutes on that topic. And our table topics master tonight is the inimitable Jim Lowry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster Craig. I really appreciate that. Many of you have probably stepped outside the last couple of days, but did you realize you are in the dog days of summer? Oh yeah, the dog days of summer are the hot, sultry days of summer. So I just want to know, I'm a dog person. I don't have a dog right now. I'm inundated with cats, which I need to get a dog to take care of that. But that's another story for another time. But for all those dog lovers out there, what would you do to help out your dog or any other dog to stay cool during this time? Shankar, what can you do for our dogs?
Dear Mr. Table Topics Master, I can answer that question fairly easily because not too long ago, I had to say goodbye to a very beloved dog, Jacoby, and he did not really like the heat too much. He started acting all like a grandpa when it was hot, so I made sure he was cool. And one of the best ways to do that, of course, you would think, is go and swim with your dog. Now, that doesn't always prove as easy as you would think. In fact, for my dear Jacoby, there had to be a syzygy of different elements right so that he would go into the water. When Jacoby and I lived in Chicago, we had access to a large lake, very, very big lake over there. And on one nice and hot summer afternoon, I took him to the lake. Now, Jacoby had to be quite convinced to even try the water with the tip of his right toe. And when he did so, he jumped back and looked at me, asking me with his facial expression, like, why are you doing this to me? Don't you know that at home you have to take peanut butter to even blackmail me into that shower of yours? Now, why on earth would you think I would go into this huge lake that is bigger than any body of water even found in Europe, by the way? Well, Jacoby, at the end of the day, had me more in the water than I had him. But to answer your question, Jim, one thing I could always count on is him gnawing on ice cubes. He loved that. That was like a soft ice cream for him. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Outstanding. I remember the story you gave of Kobe, and that brings back that story pretty quick. The dog days are the days following the rising of the star Sirius. Do you know any names of constellations or names that should be constellations? How about you, Mindy? Tell us about the stars.
First of all, I'd like to say I knew you would pick on me because it's my first time back, so I appreciate that. But I can tell you that there is a star named Bentley because I purchased it for my granddaughter for her first birthday. They were not expecting it. I sent it. They live in Idaho. And I sent a certificate along with this little kit that comes with it and shows exactly where the star is. I mailed it to them without saying anything, and they opened it and FaceTimed me when they opened it. My daughter was shocked and cried, and my granddaughter did not know what was going on since she was 1. However, she smiled and laughed because she was just excited to see her grandma Birdie on the camera. After that, they created a whole wall hanging for Bentley Star to be seen at their house in her bedroom for the rest of her life, as long as she lives at home with her parents. That is probably one of the very few stars that I know, because I haven't spent a lot of time studying stars, even though everybody else in my family is very interested in it. My mother has a giant telescope in her bedroom, and her and my son spend a lot of time looking at the stars. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
Wow, that was 2 excellent answers to 2 excellent questions. Can I pick another one that's really good? I don't know. Greek and Roman astrology thought the syzygy of Sirius, the sun, and the earth is what brought on the heat, drought, sudden thunderstorms, lethargy, fever, mad dogs, and bad luck. My brother used to always say, if it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Craig, I'd like to know, what's your take on luck?
I like to think that we make our own luck. I think it was Thomas Jefferson once said, "The harder I work, the luckier I seem to be." I could be wrong on that attribution, but I like that saying because I find the same thing. While every once in a while there are chance things that come into your life, it is up to you whether or not you want to take the opportunity to follow on those journeys. I'll give you a perfect example. It wasn't luck that I ended up in San Antonio, Texas. It may have been to some people, but for me, it was a culmination of the skills I had learned, what I had gained, what I knew. When the opportunity presented itself, I decided to jump on it. I didn't jump on it by myself, of course. I had some other people around me that I needed to convince to take this journey. But while I do consider myself fortunate, I don't say that I would attribute that to luck. We all make our own luck. Opportunity sometimes comes disguised as work. And work hard and you will have good luck. Mr. Table Topics Master.
I've often said, luck sides with the prepared. The dog days are now understood to be the hottest, most uncomfortable part of the summer in the northern hemisphere. I want you to picture in your mind river, lake, ocean, or good old-fashioned swimming pool. Which one do you like to cool off in, Andrea?
Dear Table Topics Master, well, if you can't tell by the way that I'm always dressed, which right now you can't see, but it's a sundress, my favorite spot to cool off in would be a beach because I belong there because I'm an island girl. I lived on an island for a year in the Canaries, which is an island off the coast of Spain near West Africa. Well, it is West Africa, it's the islands of it. And there, I always had an opportunity to do what I do best, which is walk on the beach looking amazing and beautiful and wonderful and cooling myself off. Because that's my favorite place, because that's where I belong. Although I have relocated to San Antonio, there's still a beach 2 hours away that I can hop over to, where I can do what's best, walk around looking beautiful and amazing and fantabulous on the beach, because that is the best way for me to cool off. And of course, I will drag along my lovely Shankar, who will not go in the water, but will watch me doing what I do best, looking fabulous and amazing, cooling off at my favorite place on the beach. Dear Table Topics Master.
I used to like the beach until I went accidentally shark hunting. My brothers and I, we caught about 6 or 8 sharks about 3 feet long. I decided I didn't like the beach anymore. Too many sharks. I do have one more question, but most people have already had speaking roles except for Gauna. Pamela. There you are. Pamela, I just got to know, Sirius is by far the brightest proper star in the night sky. Do you ever go stargazing and just look up at the stars? Tell us about it.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I have to admit that lately, even though I'm spending time at home, having a 10-month-old, I do not get out late anymore. When I was younger, I used to look up at the sky and admire the stars, the clouds, make images out of the clouds. However, with me having an 8-year-old and a 10-month-old, we do not spend much time outside. However, I do have a future plan of being in the backyard once my baby is old enough to be out in the backyard and can handle being outside for a long period. I would like my son to experience that, both of my sons to experience that, and I am looking forward to that in the future. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Madam Timer, I know I'm putting you right on the spot, but can I get a timer's report on our respondents for table topics?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. So for our first table topic speaker, Shankar, I have to apologize because I know that I put the green Zoom background up a little bit late and then within 20 seconds switched to the yellow. So I do apologize in advance for that, or apologize for that. Shankar was at 2 minutes and 16 seconds. The time is between 1 to 2 minutes. Shankar, you were 16 seconds over. Did a good job. Our second table topic speaker, Mindy, you presented your information within 1 minute and 26 seconds. Good job. Craig, your table topics was for 1 minute and 17 seconds. Andrea, yours was for 1 minute and 16 seconds. And then mine was for 1 minute and 6 seconds. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you so much. I now return control of this meeting to our wonderful Toastmaster Craig.
Thanks, Jim. Now we'll move on to the evaluation portion of our meeting where we'll get feedback on our prepared speeches as well as the meeting on a whole. For this, I will turn the meeting over to our general evaluator, Andrea Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Mr. Toastmaster. Again, my name is Andrea Ferguson. I am the general evaluator for today. And one of the main reasons that we have an evaluation portion in our meeting is to lift our members up so that they'll come back and speak again. And the way that we do this is by having various kinds of evaluations. It's broken down into 3 parts. We have our evaluators who present their evaluations of the speakers tonight. And we have our appointment holders, timer, grammarian, all counter. I'll be giving the overall evaluation, and I'm going to turn it over right now to Tammy, who will evaluate Laura's speech. Tammy.
Thank you, Andrea. Laura, I really appreciated your presentation tonight. Your candor and your personal delivery was amazing. I really loved the way that you used your personal examples throughout. You had good volume, but you looked away from the camera occasionally. So I noticed that there are some things you could do maybe as you're presenting in this virtual format where you could really kind of focus a little more on the camera. I liked how you started out talking a little bit about leadership, and then you led into what your real topic was, which had to do with the situation that we're in, remote situation, and how this has become something that is a hobby for you. And then you talked us clear through how to do that. I really appreciated how you got to the topic. You started your PowerPoint, and then on your PowerPoint, you talked us through. So you discussed how to carry out the genealogy and the different types of research. It was really well organized. You talked about the software. It was interesting, and you actually asked us questions to draw us in. So you said, do you have a lot of? And so that makes us think about what we do have. You also gave some personal examples to illustrate. The Bible, for example, was very good. And when you pointed out, I really liked how you pointed out the difference in the writing. You also left us with a list of action items. So you told us what to do. And then you said, if you want to do it, then here's your first step, here's your second step. And you really walked us through where to go. You gave us the resources. You gave us tips. You gave us types of death records. Your spoken language was very clear and easy to understand. Your vocal variety was also, you were using your tone and speed and volume very well throughout your speech. Again, I think that eye contact is where I really would like to see you do a little bit more, like focus on us as your audience. And the only other thing that I really wanted to say was just to watch your time. And I know that you had a lot to say, which was very interesting, but running over. But the end of it was awesome because you left us with curiosity. And I think that's always a positive thing at the end of a speech, to leave us wanting more. So now we're wanting to know what you're going to say the next time when you come back and give your next speech on this mystery. And I can't wait. And that's all.
Thank you, Tammy, our evaluator. I have to say I 100% agree that everyone is looking forward to your next speech, Laura. You have got us on our toes now, wanting to figure out what this mystery genealogy is. I appreciate the syzygy that's also happening in this evaluation portion of the night. I will now like to turn it over to our WAG, if I'm not mistaken. Am I on track, presiding officer, with the schedule? We cannot hear you.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I would like to turn it over to our dear
Do I give the time for
WAG,
the
timer,
evaluation?
sorry. Yes,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you, Andrea. For Tammy's evaluation, you presented for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And that was within the 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, fellow Toastmaster.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Pamela. All right, it is now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have my screen up. This is a digital format. Bear with us, everyone watching and attending. This is a bit still kind of something to wrap your head around, how you have to adapt. But I would say at this point, it is the general evaluator's duty to evaluate the meeting. Is that correct? Am I missing?
We need to go to the WAG, I believe, before the general evaluator.
And now it's time to go to our WAG before the general evaluation. Take it away, WAG.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Andrea. The word of the day use contest goes to Andrea with 2 usages, although I would have to review the second occurrence and see if it was really applicable, but you mentioned it most often, which is 2 times, and then I had 1 time down for myself and another usage by Jim, the expert of everything celestial, so I'm sure his usage was correct. As far as Laura, I caught 15 ums that are barely noticeable, but they are there. And then, being very picky, 3 occurrences of the use wanna, when probably in formal settings you want to say want to instead of wanna. Crack with a very elegant or I'm not sure how to repeat that, but that is also probably to be avoided. Tammy, I had 1 you know and 2 us. And for everyone else, I must say, very, very clean spoken English. I have nothing else to report.
Thank you, Mr. WAG, for giving that breakdown for us. Now I have a few comments on the meeting as a whole, just checking in to make sure that I am following this schedule correctly. Is that right? Thank you very much. Okay, well, as you know, everything is virtual, so we do not have a sergeant at arms, so I cannot comment on how the room is set up properly physically, but I can comment on how it was set up digitally. And our acting sergeant at arms right now is Shankar, who seems to open the Zoom. Is that correct? All right, so what I would have to say is that one of the things that I noticed evaluating the meeting from beginning to end was it is kind of difficult to sometimes start on time when we're not quite clear on the roles and we have shifted leadership. So many times the person opening the meeting would also be presiding officer, would also be Toastmaster a lot of the times. Now that things are changing, what I recommend is that we all have the flag downloaded on our background so that if we have the opportunity to be presiding officer, that we can have the flag prepared so that we do not have to rely on Shankar, whoever is opening the meeting. That way we can have that flow a little bit more fluid. Guests were warmly greeted and attended to, I believe, which would be our dear Mindy, who has come back to us and has been forgiven her sins and trespasses for being away for so long. That's okay, no one's perfect, just kidding. We're so happy that you were able to come. And I would also have to say that this is really important to be able to learn how to organize, structure, and lead an online meeting, as we all know what benefits there will be in the future, starting now, starting today, and being able to conduct that rather fluidly. And Toastmaster gives you that great opportunity, as Craig always says, it's a safe place to fall on your face. And I have since had 2 friends that have coincidentally also joined Toastmasters after I have been broadcasting it on my Facebook sharing. So learning how to open meetings and all of this will be great. So everyone download the flag, and I think we'll be good. The meeting, having said that, did start a little bit off time, a few minutes, but that's okay. We kept on time through the end. Also, one thing I think may be useful is, Laura, we know, you know that you went a little bit over time, and that's okay. I would say if you know you're the only speaker, you may just say that you want to extend your time, and that would be completely acceptable, because we would make up the time anyway, either through table topics, or maybe we would end a little bit early or take a little bit more time evaluating. And that is something that also could help you to stay within your time limit. That's what I have to say on timing. Toastmaster, the agenda was complete. There was me who faltered a little bit and getting off on not being so fluid because I just don't have the agenda in front of my face. So that's maybe something that I might consider. But otherwise, the transitions were really good. Everyone was properly introduced. Table topics were definitely appropriate. And I would like to hand the lectern back over to Mr. Toastmaster, because I think I'm going to go over time if I'm not too careful.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Before we close the meeting out, I have to apologize because I stood here in front of you all and lied. I told a fudge. It is not the 5th Monday of the month. I was thinking ahead to my next meeting, which is the 5th Wednesday of the month. And we are doing a backwards meeting, which is always interesting and a good way to lose friends if you're an evaluator. I will say that. Then, with all that done, we are up against time, and I will return control back to our presiding officer, Laura.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Next on the agenda, I want to review our next meeting date, which will be on Monday, August the 3rd at 5:30. And if you are interested in roles, I'm sure our secretary, Tammy Perez, is taking names for roles for the next meeting, so please share that information with her. Also on the agenda is to review awards and announcements, and so I do want to recognize a few individuals who have earned awards in the last few weeks that we have not had the opportunity to announce. And so last week we had announced an award that was earned by our president, which was a level 4. And also Shankar, he earned a level 4 award in July as well for visionary communication. And I believe, I don't have all of the information from me, but I believe Andrea has also earned an award in the past month or month and a half. So congratulations, Andrea, for earning one of your awards. And for those of us who are visiting members or are unaware what we're talking about with regards to awards, we are pursuing pathways in our Toastmaster curriculum. And as we make progress and complete speeches, we earn awards for completing those milestones. And so these are individuals that have completed their awards recently and been awarded certificates for their various levels. And finally on the agenda, I believe I can adjourn our meeting unless we have any further announcements for the group. Okay, I saw Andrea first.
Thank you, Laura. I just wanted to commend, because I did write in my notes that were so incredibly long that I cut them down, but I wanted to commend Pamela Gauna for taking on her role and being so thorough. And you've been gone for a while, but you got back on, you're in your role now, and we all saw it and we all felt it. And you're keeping us on our toes now to be within our time, or you're gonna call us on it even on table topics. we appreciate that very much and look forward to seeing you back next week.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. And Shankar, you have an announcement?
Yes, well, speaking of commanding, big shout out to Tammy for those amazing weekly newsletters. Thank you so much. They have been included in our website under the blog section. Don't forget that you can point people to that. And also we are really trying to do a better job with our Toastmasters Facebook page. Have a look at that as well. All the speeches, including tonight's, will be uploaded there. Last but not least, I want to ask if the two remaining attendees could cast their vote for the best table topic, because that could change the outcome. So I have two people who still need to cast their vote. It's anonymous, nobody sees it but myself, and it's quick, so please take a moment to do that.
While we wait, if I could add that I'd like to give a kudos, I believe you, Shankar, who added the role descriptions in the meeting meeting agenda. Thank you for doing that. It was great to be able to log in today and click on that icon and be able to go directly to the script and the log. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right, we have one vote missing, and it's important because it means either tying or not. So let's see. Mindy, could you submit your vote?
Are you going to tell her how to submit the vote?
It's a link in the chat. I'm sorry. You just need to click that doodle link, and then you can select your choice and submit it.
I think, Shankar, we may want to explore the polling option. As the person who opens the meeting, there's a way for you to create a poll, and it's completely anonymous, and you get the results immediately, and you can share them, I believe. Laura's used it before. She uses it for our faculty meetings to take the vote for our items.
Yes, if you'd like to, Shankar, at some point I can just show you quickly how to create a poll for a meeting.
Yes, that would certainly be nice. Also, if I ever cannot make the meeting, then you guys know how to do that without the doodle. At this point, I can announce the best table topic of the night is Mindy. And she did not vote for herself, I can tell you that. Thank you. No, Mindy, I think you got a good question there that was not easy, and you handled it very well. And then you are followed closely by the second spot, which was taken by Andrea.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.